You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Jeff Levine.
Hey, what's up, Robbie? Thanks for having me on your show. Appreciate it.
It's going to be our show because we're going to turn it into our little baby miracle.
Let's do it. Yeah, I got one right behind me right now taking a nap. So
Perfect. So,
more
t-
more the merrier.
tell me a little bit about yourself, and if you want, what you do professionally, or just whatever you want to talk about.
Sure. Jeff, and I currently live in Vermont. Professionally, um, I'm a hot sauce guy. I've got a little hot sauce company. I dabble in a couple other things as well, but in my main gig is hot sauce. I call it Silk City hot sauce.
Okay. Why Silk City?
Silk City is the was the pet name or the for Patterson, New Jersey. I'm originally from New Jersey. I didn't grow up in Patterson, but my mother and father grew up there. So I consider it I consider it the motherland, and I always thought it had a good ring to it. It's an old textile town on the Passaic River, and I couldn't come up with a name. So I thought, well, where do I come from? Where are my roots? Where do my people hail from in Silk City?
I like finding out that stuff. Like, I hate ancestry.com. I think that's a load of shit. Every time I've tried to figure out something, they're like, you hailed from the ancient Wakandans in Africa. I'm like, I don't know about that one. Like, that seems a little bit too far fetched. Like, you're also half dragon. I'm like, I don't know about that one either. That one seems a little bit too much. But at least when we talk about like Silk City, we're getting the name kind of like you brought up the textile thing. That's interesting because if you notice that like a lot of places, such as like, Pittsburgh, how they have like a lot of dense kind of fog and their weather's kind of a little bit dreary a lot.
For sure, yeah.
That's because of those factory machines, those giant industrial things that puff out all those giant things of smoke. The reason why they did that was because during war times, when we were going against the Japanese, we put all our factories near very, very crappy climates, like things that experience a high density of fog. Just because we thought that if they were going to scout us from, up in the sky, they couldn't see through the fog. So that was a perfect place to put all of our like weapons, all of our labor shops, because we're hiding our stuff like behind a smoke screen or something.
That's interesting. That's a good idea. I didn't know that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I know I picked up a
Um,
textbook once and I probably should have put it back down, but it was a conspiracy book and I went a little bit nuts.
did yeah, you learned something interesting at the very least. I don't typically read textbooks. Um, I never read anything. I don't know about you, Robbie. Like growing up, um, I'm assuming you were assigned books, book reports,
Yeah,
things
a
like that in
bunch of
school.
bullshit that I never
I,
did and always threw it
I
out the
didn't
window.
I didn't fucking read a book like from cover to cover, front to back for the first maybe 20 years of my life. Not one, nothing. Like I remember getting assigned book reports in like third and fourth grade when they expected us to actually read like chapter books and I just did books that were made into movies. I don't know if you've ever done that, but
Yeah,
Willy
Harry
Wonka,
Potter, like
Willy
I couldn't even read that. I just saw the movie and tried to write a book report on it and it's nothing like the book.
right on, yeah. So I chose Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I got so nailed because I love the movie. We had it on VHS back in the day. That's was the movie watching format du jour, and I had it and I watched it. And I was like, I got this. I got this in the bag. So I did a little report on Willy Wonka and his Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Oompa Loompas and everything. And I didn't realize that the movie um, in the book were different. I mean, there were characters that were in the book but not in the movie and so on. So, anyways, I got busted, but I didn't care because I didn't have time to read books anyways.
When I said textbook, it was like like an internet article. So take with that what you will. I just usually say textbook, but like even when I was a kid growing up, like most kids, they look at Shrek and they think of the opening scene, All Star with Smash Mouth. Um, I don't know if you've probably seen Shrek. You got little ones. Uh,
I have a little one now, but I haven't seen it.
you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't
Oh,
seen anything.
well,
Yeah,
well, you
I
know
have
Mike Myers from Goldmember, right?
for sure. Yeah, and Saturday Night Live and
Yeah, well, I saw Shrek in the the cartoon as a kid, and you miss all those adult jokes they have in there. Like there's a giant tower, and he's like, you think he's compensating for something, and it's a kids thing, but they had those jokes in there a lot, like in cartoons and stuff, like SpongeBob and everything. Well,
for sure.
um, I went to the library and I was a very good reader. I mean, there was always like, if you had to read aloud in class, you take turns. There's always the kids that would be stuck on a page. I was already finished the chapter. I was like, let's get past this. I hated reading though. I wanted to get it over with. So I'd read it fast. And I really like, I remember she was like, pick a book you like. I'm like, I don't want to read anything. I just don't want to. And she was like, you need to find one that's, you can read, or you just want to read so you can get it over with. We got to give you a star or something. And I picked out these philosophy books that were drawn like comics. They were like the comic book art, but they were textbooks that taught you all about religion. I learned all about the Mayans. I learned all about the Incas. I learned about so many different religions and different cultures and different variations. And it was shown in a way, like I learned a lot about mythology from it too, and that's where I found my interest in it. Like it was just shown in a way that was like comic books, so you were reading it and it was cool pictures, cool designs, but they told you a story of actual factual information too. And I pulled that out. I was like, damn, like a lot of my information, a lot of my passions today when it comes to history are all the old ancient school arts just from reading those books.
Oh, that's cool, man. Comic books are awesome, man. And like my whole childhood was surrounded by piles and piles and piles of comic books, man. It was what my dad did for a living. Believe it or not, I didn't realize we were going to get into comic books, but you could even make the argument that um, my life today stems from comic books, one way or another, um, because my father was probably the world's best, largest junk collector when he was a young guy. And like when him and my mom got married, he had 3 boxes of junk, and he said, I hope you don't mind. We're going to move these 3 little boxes of junk into the apartment. They have comic books, old toys, stuff like that. And over 20, 25 years, those 3 boxes of junk turned into like 2 sheds in the backyard, just stockpiled with people's garbage. And in the mid 80s, when I was a kid growing up, I was born in 1978. I'm 41 years old now. I was born in the 70s, but in the early 80s, the comic book world started developing conventions around the country. Collectibles started becoming like a big passion for people. The characters they started making movies, the Superman movies, Batman, and the collectible world was just blowing up. And we were at the right place at the right time with all the right garbage and collectibles out back. So as a kid, my dad had us all, me, my brother, and any neighborhood kid that would work for pizza, alphabetize, organize all the comic books and all the memorabilia into some sort of order. And then we hit the road doing conventions every weekend when I was a kid. Every weekend, Baltimore, Orlando, Chicago, San Diego, New York, everywhere, man.
It's crazy to see the twist in society's culture today, like what's popular now. I mean, back in the day, you were like a nerd if you liked comic books. It was a geek thing. I didn't grow up in that era. I didn't have that opportunity to see comic books. My first comic book I ever got was a Kiss comic book. My dad plays in a rock bottom tribute band, or no, not rock bottom, a Kiss tribute band called Rock
Does he
Bottom.
really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I've always known my dad since I was a kid to be Peter Chris. That was my dad. My dad, I don't know if you know him. If you ever been around the area, his name's Skip Dixon. He owns a radio
Oh,
station.
okay, cool. I'm not familiar with that area, unfortunately, but
But like even like my whole time growing up, it was Kiss everything. I remember going into the like radio station with him when I was a little kid in a pillow, and he would put Mortal Kombat on, even though I was definitely not old enough to watch that. But in the meeting room board, and I would just sit there, and I would always walk by his desk and see statues of Gene Simmons, the Demon, Catman, Star Child, all these things, and I'm like, what is Kiss? And my dad just looked at me at like 4 years old and was like, I messed up. Like, if you don't know who Kiss is, I did something wrong here. And he showed me everything. I mean, he had the original books. There was 100 printed books of the band Kiss. It was like I guess a biography for the band, but the original 100 were printed with their blood was the ink.
with their blood, I was just gonna say we had a couple of issues with the blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
My dad had one of those and he had it signed and everything. And actually, you can look up a commercial, anybody out there listening that wants to. There's a Swedish commercial with Kiss in it. And as they're pulling away from the gas station, my dad is the one on the drum set in the back playing in the back of the truck. He did a commercial with Kiss. They saw, I guess some promoter came out and saw my dad play at Rams Head Live in Baltimore and said that he was a perfect because they needed him to shoot this thing because Peter
And
Chris
he
couldn't
looked
make it.
right. And your dad was a dead ringer for
Yeah,
Peter Chris.
and
That's incredible, dude. Yeah, we did the Kiss convention too. You're I would where the Kiss Army would perform on
yeah,
Saturday night at the end of the when the dealers room would close. They would prop up one of those small stages like built out of those I don't even know what they are, like aluminum risers, or and just put on like a full-fledged Kiss concert with guys like your dad dressed up to the nines in the makeup and the boots and like pyrotechnics, not stadium pyrotechnics, because it was in a convention hall, surrounded by people selling magazines, with blood and all this stuff. So,
yeah.
um,
Well,
fuck Kiss, dude.
we talk about like the trends and stuff. Like I grew up around that, around radio, around all this stuff. So all this is very normal to me. Same with you when it comes to collectibles and things that are very exotic, even though they might be cool finds, but you're normalized to it too because you had it around so much as a kid. And if we see like old school rock bands, the classic rock like Kiss, Metallica, whatever, and then you're seeing comic books, they're all this technically the same because it's all getting flushed back. It's past history that's now getting thrown into today's culture. That's all
Dude,
getting revamped.
it's amazing. You just bring up Metallica, for example. Um, in the '80s, when they were on tour, for Master of Puppets, they were blowing up. It was like '86, something like that. They were blowing up, and we were in the city, New York City, doing a comic book convention. I think a Star Trek convention. And one of my dad's friends was this dude, Big Andy, and he was he dealt in like 8x10 glossies, but his shtick was getting things signed, getting as many signatures as he could, back in the day. And I don't know what he knew about Metallica, but he had a good feeling about those guys. Cliff Burton was still playing bass; he was still alive. So I don't know exactly the date, but it was Cliff and James and Kirk and Lars, and he invited me and my brother. I was about 7 or 8, and my mother and father to go across town and see Metallica that night after the convention. And then so we went, and it was I don't know what your memories were like of seeing shows like that when you're that age, but for me it was just a sensory overload. I was 7 or 8
Dude, the
at this
best the best feeling
yeah.
in the world is when you hear that drum set hit. I remember seeing when I was very, very little. I have to send you a picture of it. But it was me going to I used to go to my dad's gigs. Like I mean, music is my whole life. My mom was pregnant on stage with me. When I was a baby, I was on stage, and how I always viewed my dad was in multiple bands, and on top of doing radio, I mean, he probably only slept 3 hours a night doing DJ gigs at night too. And when I always see, you look at your dad as a superhero. he was playing drums, and the whole time he's playing drums, he's shaking his head, like, head banging, but it's like side to side, like just flipping his hair all around, just going nuts for hours and hours. And I'm like, how does he keep constantly doing that? And then like going to gigs, like I went to Baltimore in front of like 8,000 people, which I mean, that's like a normal thing for my dad. He's playing in front of all these people, and I'm sitting in the back, and he's hitting the drum set so hard it's shaking my inner part of my rib cage. Like it feels like my heart's going to burst out of my chest. And
You,
those gigs,
you're
those experiences.
you've got an amazing childhood. You're so, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you feel lucky, and your dad felt looked like a superhero. Your dad is a superhero. It's amazing. People are like, yeah, my dad, comes home from work and goes plays golf on the weekend, and I guess that's fine. I mean, it's not particularly my game, but to have that, to be a kid and watch your dad be a rock star
Yeah, I
is
mean,
is the coolest thing
it's
imaginable.
it's weird because I didn't follow, like, everybody in my family went into the music path. I dabbled in it, but it was just not for me. My brother was playing and opening up for my dad, like that whole thing. Like, my dad was the main event, and I'm sitting there like listening to my brother play Green Day or 21 Guns in front of all these people or something. He was really into that. My mom did it on the side. Like she would do some big gigs too. And there's a band that called Flytrap that he invented with my uncle that I will never apparently know about because nobody wants to bring it up because it was back in their metal days. So it was like really, really crazy, like intense lyrics. I had to wait till I got older, then everybody forgot about it. But like we talk about things being normalized, all these situations. Like, you meet famous people too, and for somebody that could be their idol, but for other people, it's just another person. That's what really made me normalize all the stuff about radio. My dad met Ziggy Marley outside a gig one time. He was setting up, I guess, the sound system for Ziggy Marley, and he was just out there having a cigarette. My dad didn't even know who he was. He walked up, he's like, "Can I bum a cigarette?" And then had a cigarette with him at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then some dude was like, "Dude, that's Ziggy Marley." When he walked away, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know." Like I met Randy Orton doing jet skis, so it's like I knew who he was, but I don't care about wrestling. See, it's like the idols for people. It's crazy to see how we can, like, through someone else's perspective, I should say.
Yeah, man, it's so true. People, yeah, I mean, they're when they're built up like in the media, on the screen or in magazines, and they've got the look. I mean, people don't realize that stars have, people that pick out their clothes and do their makeup and their hair, and they become like gods themselves. I mean, speaking of Greek mythology, those characters were like the Gene Simmons and the Paul Stanleys of ancient Greece and Rome. Those guys understood pop culture and they understood fame, but they sort of created their own version of it with fictional characters, I think. But I
That's
hear you, dude. Like,
Yeah, that's
I
what
hear
you
you as
need to
far as
do
like,
with. Well, that's what you need to do with your hot sauce, I think. Like
well, well, that's
know.
just that's just it, because we're talking about all the art and graphics and the look, and to me, hot sauce is great. It's my business, and I've always been a hot sauce freak. I didn't grow up in a home where we had traditional family recipes. I'm not going to tell you that my recipes were passed down from generation to generation. My family doesn't cook. We didn't cook. It's like if if I was uh, my mom was making me Elio's pizza when I was a kid. It wasn't what the kids ate. Like we all ate Elio's pizza. That's the kind of house I grew up in. It wasn't like, oh, our parents cooked traditional food with traditional recipes and kids ate peanut butter and jelly, grilled cheese and stuff like that. It was just so food wasn't wasn't a big focal point in our life. But I don't know when or where hot stuff was fascinating to me. And I was thinking about it last night after I knew we were going to do this. Probably I was thinking to myself, who am I? Why do I do this? You know? So I was sort of racking my brain last night, seriously, like just couldn't fall asleep thinking about like where cayenne pepper falls into my life. And
And
um,
every meal I ever eat, that's where it falls into my life.
yeah, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, well, Tabasco sauce, of course, was in our cupboard with like Sudafed and some, it's just some old Mrs. Dash seasoning. And I remember putting Tabasco sauce on everything, and it was just normal for me to do that. I like heat. And then I was thinking about cayenne pepper, and I was racking my brain. I thought like another link to what I do now is so weird. When I was like in maybe fifth or sixth grade, I had cold hands and feet. I don't know why I still do. I don't know if it's a circulation thing. I should probably quit smoking. It's bad for circulation. But um, we used to listen to talk radio every Sunday on the way on W from on a station WOR out of New York City. Talk radio was always playing at my house or in the car. And there used to be this supplement show that they probably paid for the hour that on every Sunday morning. It was a store that sold supplements, and then the guys that owned and ran it were experts and would take and field calls from the audience. And I remember learning so much from that show. And somebody must have called in once and said, I have cold hands, cold feet. They identified it as something called Raynaud syndrome and recommended taking cayenne capsules as a supplement. So we went to the health food store and I bought cayenne capsules for myself when I was like I said, 10 or 11 years old as a medicine for my circulation issues. So I was thinking about that last night, and I remember I used to love taking my cayenne medicine. It felt really good. You would take cayenne pill, it would go down that like weird like weird gelatin coated capsule. And then it would like dissolve and open up in my stomach, and the heat would just start expanding from the core of my belly out and through my arms and my hands and my feet. It was so weird, but it felt good.
And that's what you tried to replicate with creating a sauce, something that warms you up on the inside.
Yeah, man, it feels good to ingest hot peppers. It just feels good, and I think
Well,
that's that's
it's a bit of a macho competition too when it comes to pepper eating. I'll admit to I'm a big spicy guy myself, but it's interesting how you explain that like nobody in your family was around it as well, and it wasn't just like you just decided to pick it up, but an inner passion in a way. We talk about like I'm a black sheep in my family, even though when it comes to a podcast, it's simple to talk radio or broadcasting that my parents do you know, for me, like I didn't know I was going to come to this, but I have other stuff I do too. I'm interested in stuff I've always been. I've always been a talker, and I just randomly came right back around to it. The things that you totally overlook as a kid, such as a favorite food, could inspire you to become a chef. Such as being able to have a passion for writing short stories, turning you into a writer that you end up forgetting about and discovering later in life. Like it's really crazy to see how life kind of comes back around to the beginning.
it is amazing, dude. There was a show on when I was a kid. I mean, talk about connecting the dots, which happens a lot in life. And sometimes if you don't think about it, it doesn't make sense. But just a week ago, I went to see a 92-year-old Lithuanian Holocaust survivor tell his story here in Vermont. He came to this little like little community out room in downtown, and just it looked interesting to me. I heard that he was coming, so I set aside the time and went down and saw him tell his story. This doesn't have anything to do with his story. His story was absolutely fascinating. I should connect you with him. I mean, if you want a tearjerker episode, this guy is like will just like blow the room apart, man. He was, but after he gave his talk, I went over. I introduced myself and said, and thanked him for coming down from Toronto and sharing a story. And then his handler was standing there, like gathering up the paperwork and his slideshow and everything. And I introduced myself to him, and I asked him how he got involved with this 92-year-old storyteller. He said, well, and this is something that interests me, but I said, have you been working with survivors your whole life? He said, no. I started out working for Pee Wee Herman on Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse back in the 80s. I don't know. Are you familiar with that show,
Yeah, I
Rob?
know Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, that show was incredible. He had this imaginary place, and and his cat is with the chair that talked, and exactly. And he had a segment where he threw like cartoon dots into the air, and then he sang "Connect the Dots," la 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 la, and then they would connect, and then it would like say the dots would turn into a bicycle, and then he would go on an imaginary ride on a bicycle. So
Whoever
that
created those
that
shows back in the day was on some major acid.
yeah, for real. But I was thinking about that last night. I'm like, okay, I took cayenne pills because my hands were cold. And then I was thinking about the time that me and my two best friends in high school in the late 90s, was the summer after we graduated, 97. I'd heard that band Fish, and I had a lot of friends like that were into jam bands and all that improv stuff that was really big in those years. So I wasn't particularly into it, but I wanted to check it out. So me and my two best friends borrowed my dad's '86 Ford Thunderbird, which had this six stereo in it, and we popped a Jimi Hendrix tape in, which wound up getting stuck in the tape player. So all we could listen to for 12 hours going there and 12 hours going back, which is some old rotten Jimi Hendrix tape. The music was good, but the tape was really old, and it kept slowing up and speeding up and slowing down. It was, and up on the way back, we drove through this little town in Maine. It was like Limestone, Maine or something. And there was a guy who was selling blueberry syrup on the side of the road because he knew that thousands of fish fans were going to be driving through his little town on their way back wherever they were going. And we stopped, and he had blueberry syrup, like wild Maine blueberry syrup, and he had one with jalapenos. It was a blueberry sauce with jalapenos. And I wasn't a hot sauce collector. I didn't even, I didn't have a collection at home, but I tasted it, and it was fucking awesome. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the next fucking Coke. This is crazy. My friends were like, what are you talking about? It's fucking weird. So I brought it home, and I loved it, man. I put it on pancakes, put it on everything. So I don't know. There's just another dot.
Dude, it's like it all gets connected kind of back to what you wanted, though. Like in the beginning, I was like, wait, how do you randomly just decide to join hot sauce? You're like, I don't know. And then now we uncover after like all this stuff that all leads back to it. Like that's interesting though. But how do you like what do you use in your sauce? Like yeah, you obviously have different flavors. I kind of want to talk about it a little bit. Like everyone that I've talked to that owns a hot sauce company or starts off doing something, they have a preference when it comes to the peppers they use.
Yeah, man. Back in 2017, when I was just putting, maybe it was 16 and then into 17, but I was putting my first flavor profile together, and I was doing what most people probably do, just going out to the store and buying peppers and coming home and thinking about how I was going to blend mine. And something I don't know. I was going for a jog or something, and I was thinking about what could what are flavors that typically go well together. And for some reason, juice bar popped into my head at that particular time. Just the type of juice bar that's will like grind up carrots and celery and apples and pears and all that shit for a big giant sugary vitamin boost. I was thinking those flavors are always so good, like those smoothie places. So that was the initial inspiration for my first round of flavors. My first two sauces that I came out with were a carrot, jalapeno, and just from living in Vermont, I'd sort of come across a couple of different people that are making interesting things. And there's a farm not far from me, an orchard really, but they take their apples and then they turn them into apple cider, and then they cook that cider down just like maple syrup guys do, and turn the apple cider into a thick, like super sweet, complex cider syrup. It flows out of a bottle like maple syrup, but it's apple cider. And I ran up to that farm and I bought a gallon of his syrup because in my head I thought the carrot, the jalapeno, and then apple syrup I think would like blend well together and get that sweet orchard flavor and the mild to medium jalapeno heat, and the carrot provides a nice base with a nice not with a nice sweet flavor with just the right amount of salt. And I put that together and started bringing it around to people. I thought it tasted good, and my wife thought it tasted good, but I started bringing it around to people, and they thought so too. So I reached out to, yeah,
What did you decide to call it?
carrot apple zinger.
Carrot apple zinger.
Yeah, for lack of a better name,
Dude,
it's
that's
just
different from the most I've heard. It seems like everything with hot sauce does with demonology. There's nothing that's like it's either making fun of something like Little Wimpy, shout out to Harmon Heat for that sauce or whatever, but like it's always something like that's supposed to be like making fun of you for not wanting a super hot sauce, or it's something that's like devil's dick on fire and you're like that sounds dangerous. Like they're never passive.
Yeah, I know. It's I don't know if it's a throw. I don't know if it's like leftover throwback from like yeah that culture of yeah demons and hot sauce and motorcycles and yeah and all that and leather jackets, which I like that. I think I, I think that style looks cool, but it's definitely not me.
That's what I think of when I think of hot sauce too. I think of a dude with a long, like a cigarette stained beard with a biker jacket on, like the movie Wild Hogs, just riding down a road with like one little bar on it or something, and he's got real dark sunglasses, and he's got like the skull in the back of the jacket. He's got like a holster of hot sauce. That's immediately what I
Dude,
think of when I think of hot sauce.
dude, and they and all those old school dudes have all burned their stomachs out because in the since I came out with my sauces and I've been going around different places, stores and farmers markets and stuff like that, sampling the stuff. 9 times out of 10, those old bearded, hard, tough guys and road dogs are like, oh man, I'm like, you want to try, and I think I've got them like typecast for a sale. But I'm like, hey, you want to try my hot sauce? And they're like, oh man, I can't touch that shit anymore. So they're all burned out. They're not my demo anymore.
Mm. So, do you try and stick with the like? Which do you prefer? Sticking with the getting like a super hot sauce, like one that's gonna burn, like be extreme for those chili heads out there, or do you prefer something that's gonna taste good and make it a little warm on the inside without really ruining your meal or ruining your mouth?
The latter, Robbie, the latter. All my sauces, I've got like 7 flavors right now on the website, and and plus an eighth that I just added last night, the newest sauce that I just got back from preparing. But all my sauces range from medium to medium hot to just hot. Nothing crazy. One of the reasons is I go down to Dutton Farm. Shout out to Dutton Farm in Newfane, Vermont. It's an old school family. They're like fifth generation Vermont. They don't even sound like they're I don't know. It's got like there's like an old school Vermont accent. It's a lot of people up here are transplants like me, but they're old school and they've been working the land for generations and they grow jalapenos, habaneros, this long hot pepper that it's like 6 or 8 inches long, and they grow a few other varieties, but they don't grow any trendy peppers. Which the guy George over there told me that some of the peppers like Ghost and Reaper and required very delicate growing uh, season or just that don't do well in this particular climate. So I'm using what I've got right here. I'm not ordering peppers. I'm not buying mashes from companies that sell 55-gallon drums. I'm going down to the farm and loading up the back of the Suburban with just boxes of peppers in recycled wax boxes. And
And
like I
you
said, those are typically jalapeno and habaneros.
and you're using so that's basically what all your sauces consist of is jalapeno and habaneros.
And yeah, and cherry peppers too. Those peppers that look like cherry tomatoes. They're just like full of seeds and nice medium heat. Except for now, I've been people have been asking me for something crazy hot. They've been asking me for just something to video for YouTube. So I did find a farm up in northern Vermont, which is I think an extension off of the University of Vermont, has like an agricultural school and a test farm. And actually another hot sauce buddy of mine turned me on to them. And they do grow, I think they're indoor grown, Ghost and Fatale peppers. So I scored a shitload of Ghost and Fatale peppers, beautiful peppers. Fatale are fucking wicked hot. Yellow peppers are really, I mean, they're slightly less hot than Ghost, but I thought, why not mix them both? So I've just been formulating this particular sauce. It's called Killer Hot, and it's fucking ridiculous, dude. It's a blend of jalapeno, habanero, fatale, ghost, and these and red lantern peppers, and a base of carrot, fresh roasted garlic, and honey.
Now, is that a thick paste or is that a thin one?
The sauce is pretty thick.
That's what I like about a sauce, dude. I like it like sriracha consistency. I hate it when it's so light that's like comes out like water. Like Tabasco's okay, but it's just too you can end up putting too much on there where it's like now this just tastes like Tabasco, doesn't even taste like a meal.
Yeah, I like thick sauce too, and all my sauces are thick. They're all pepper dominant. They're all pepper and ingredient dominant. I add just enough vinegar to get the right pH, which is what you're looking for when you're bottling something like a hot sauce. You're looking for a pH, and the vinegar gets you where you need to be, or lime juice or lemon juice. Um, but I don't rely on the vinegar. I mean, you could really cheapen the shit out of sauces by just filling your kettle with vinegar and a little bit of pepper and
That's
like
what giant
Tabasco.
factories do, man. That's why they make so much of it. It's like when you buy Tabasco, which is like a lot of people go for, it's just because they're so popularly known. What I started learning about, like every person I've tossed an idea out with, like with hot sauce recipes or things to try and weird combinations, are just because I'm just observant. I know what works and I know what a lot of people like when it comes to advertising, especially. What what's the main thing that catches your attention when someone's buying a product is probably the label and the name of the product. The same reason why a title and a cover of a book is so popular. But when you're walking by, like you just immediately think, when you think hot sauce, you think Tabasco, you think all these things because you've been so used to seeing it on giant bottles being flushed in your face for so long. When you see the crazy labels like the sriracha one with the chicken and it's just all these Japanese lettering, you're like, whoa, that looks exotic. Let me buy that. It's the labeling. Same with your company has it perfect because you have a giant like animation of a dragon on it, dude. The front cover, it's like a comic book kind of design in a way. It's very eye catching. That's something where people see that on a bottle, like, whoa, it's got a fucking dragon on it. That dragon means hot because they breathe fire. That whole thing that goes in perfect, and that causes them, which looks at the second key really component is what's the flavor, and then the third key one that's kind of a big one is the story behind the hot sauce. Crafting out, like we talk about comics and we talk about bands having a story behind them, having a tale, going back to mythology. It's the same thing with hot sauce. When you have a story behind it, like crafted in the pits of hell, fire, and all these types of things, it creates more of a wantingness to try that sauce out and buy it.
It's so true, dude. And that's like yeah, and I love how you just tie it all in because this new sauce, the Killer Hot, I bottled it differently than my other sauces, which have the pepper dragon and with breathing fire, with bright colors, the blue circle and the red dragon and I took the dragon. He's on my new label. He's on there. But back in September, was it August, something like that? I did the Northeast Comic Con, which is something I didn't even mention before, but going way back to my comic book convention days as a kid, flash forward to now, last year, the year before, I reached out to a guy that promotes and does comic book conventions in New England, and I thought, I wonder if I can rent a booth from the one of these guys and set up my hot sauce like I do with the farmers markets at a comic book convention. So I reached out to the guy. He knew my dad from way back in the day and was happy to hear from me and rented me a booth. So there I was. I packed up all my hot sauce, all the tables, all the supplies, all the marketing stuff, and I set up right next to guys selling comic books and toys and Star Trek and all that shit. And we had a fucking blast, man. Um, just hanging out with like people that were just reminded me of my childhood. Comic book artists, cool people, cool fans, people that are into the arts, that are into merchandise and the physical stuff. It's people that cherish those types of things, and we did well. I actually did better than I thought, and making 'cause at the end of the day, it's all about making a living as well. So I did well. At the last show we did, this guy comes over. He looked like he crawled out of a Mad magazine. he has this long handlebar mustache and like a t-shirt with like a roller derby competition logo on it and like a Hawaiian shirt over that, just a real zany character. And he comes over and he introduced himself and said he was a hot sauce fanatic, and he tasted all my sauce, and he liked some of them, and bought some. And then he introduced himself as what he does for a living. The guy's name is Charles D. Masson, and he's a comic book illustrator. So we got talking, and I said, have you ever drawn a hot sauce label before?" And man, his eyes lit up. Holy shit! Here's a guy drawing comic books. He's a hot sauce fanatic, and all of a sudden we have this opportunity to create a comic book cover hot sauce label.
Yeah, and it
Long
goes
story.
perfect together too, man. Like you don't understand how much attention you pick up with that label. Even seeing that for me, I was caught my eyes. That's
You
all what
you
is.
you
Like
saw that? Yeah, you saw the picture of this one here with the beautiful femme fatale pouring the bottle of sauce on a guy tied up to a
yes,
chair
dude. I
in an
was
old
like,
in an old
I
yeah,
thought you
man.
screenshotted that from like a superhero comic. I was like, what the hell? But it's crazy because when you get that type of stuff, like a lot of that's what really sells a product. We want something that catches people's attention, and that's a perfect thing, dude. That literally looks like you got the 10 cent or the $10 thing on there, so it shows to
Exactly,
you.
which
And
which which is a shout out to the 10-cent comic book cover price from the 50s.
yep, dude, I call you. You think I was gonna miss that? Really? Come on. But like I said, it's weird how things unfold. Now, even with talking with so many people, and you finally made the killer hot sauce and everything too. I usually try and figure out a recipe. Have you ever thought about taking one of your jalapeno peppers? Because usually they use them in like a cheese base. Like if there's some cheese sauces out there that use jalapenos and they use like mango or something incorporated into it. But have you ever tried using jalapeno or maybe um I want to say I know you said red pepper, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, I've got the red cherry peppers and red habaneros. So you think of doing a blend? What are you thinking?
I was thinking of doing like a slight blend of like a one of those red chili peppers with maybe I would say jalapeno, not a habanero, but then adding like cranberry and maybe a blueberry mix to it.
I think it's a great idea, dude.
It's just like nobody ever uses cranberry, and I'm like, there are so many recipes and flavors out there where like people are just like doing the same thing. Like there's so many different ones when it comes to strawberries, when it comes to the main produce part of the aisle. But I'm like, what about the exotic shit? There's a bunch of stuff out there I've tossed out, so just like kiwi and cherry together, coconut and all these other things together. People want something crazy in flavor. It's why cereals are all fucking insane, Twinkie flavored, all this type of stuff. We want something new that's going to surprise our taste buds. And surprisingly, a lot of shit you think that's not going to work ends up working out.
I think a a jalapeno, red cherry, cranberry blend sounds amazing. I mean, to bring this back into music, like what is music? It's seven notes. No band ever invented a note. I can't invent a flavor. I don't have a laboratory where I can invent a flavor that no one's had before. It's just like I'm given a certain, like I have a finite amount of tools in front of me, just like a guitar player has a finite amount of notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, and then they got the sharps and the flats. That's like being a hot sauce maker. I got the peppers. I got jalapeno, habanero, and ghost and cherry, reaper and whatever. And then I've got, the flats and the sharps like salt and fruit and vegetables and and that's what I have at my disposal. And like I can't invent a new flavor, but I could just create, sort of like a new ideas or something that people would like, which is the basic tools that we got.
Yeah, like creating a combination like a scientist. Like I look at everything and I just start kind of analyzing more of like what are the flavor, like what are the tastes of it when I look at like a fruit that goes into something or whatever I'm picking out at the grocery store for myself to eat. I'm like, what's the taste of it? Okay, a grapefruit's sour as fuck. I don't know who the hell likes a grapefruit. Not for me. I'm sorry. I don't care about the health benefits when it comes to it. but I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, it's very, very sour. What would it go good with? Probably something that hits a little bit on the lower heat radar. You don't want something super hot, but you want something that's not going to take away the grapefruit flavor, because that's going to be very overpowering. So a small dose of that mixed in with like a nice cranberry, or mixed in with something different, it seems like it has a completely opposite flavor profile, are going to complement themselves nicely when it goes into a sauce or when it goes into a syrup. Like, I mean, the people that sit there and take the giant strides, I've even been thinking about making, making a hot sauce cookie dough, like incorporating like a type of sauce mix with like a little bit of like, I don't know, crushed up like cookie powder or something, being able to create like a little bit of like a cookie dough that's kind of spicy, make spiced up cookies. I mean, if you use oregano, you infuse that with like a habanero, or you infuse that with like uh a jalapeno, maybe. Like, you can get a different flavor profile. It's weird to see how like different tastes and all these things that you think wouldn't work really add up into something.
No, it's so true, dude. I've got a sauce I want to tell you about that, based on everything you're saying. I've got one that it's on the website. It was one of my flavor of the months because I've created this program for Silk City Hot Sauce where I made a label where I just call it flavor of the month, because sometimes I might get inspired by something, but I don't want to commit to it as a full year round flavor, but it's something I just want to make because I need to do it to fulfill some sort of my own desires. But way back in the day, I used to go into New York City and go to this vegetarian cafe called Dojo, and they used to dump. You could go in there and get like burgers and fries, and there was like a little stage in the back and rock bands playing. It was a real hip joint, sort of like one of those places where you kind of walk down a flight of stairs into it, and so it really felt like you were going deep into the caverns of rock, New York. Anyways, they used to dump this sauce over everything they served. It was like, it was hard to see what it was because the place was dark, but it was I think a tahini based sauce, and it had a little kick to it. Not much, it was it was something to appeal to the masses, but it was like a tahini sauce and a little kick, and that was like 20 something years ago. I never forgot about that sauce. It was incredible.
Okay,
So
if
this
I
this past season, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You're still
I was
going.
I was gonna say, yeah, this past season, right at the end of the pepper growing season, I scored just a huge pile of habanero peppers and cherry peppers from Dutton Farm, and brought it back to the lab, and threw some salt in the peppers, started allowed them to break down a little bit. I then brought in big buckets of sesame tahini, and and then I brought in butternut squash, and I peeled the squash and I roasted it, and then I added some soy sauce and some maple syrup. So we've got all these peppers. You got sesame tahini, roasted butternut squash, maple syrup, and I brought it all together into a smooth, creamy sauce I call the fire goddess, because there's dressings out there called goddess that are tahini based, sesame tahini, but this is fucking hot as fuck, and it's a tahini based sauce. I call it fire goddess. It's completely unique.
That's so badass. I love the naming process of hot sauce. I think that's probably my favorite part. Like, I'll just start trying to create a recipe just to create a name for something. I just love rambling off ideas when it comes to it. Like, you got me thinking though, like if you make a nice hot sauce base using whatever peppers you would really want, like I guess the ones that are easiest for you to get. Even if you decide to dive into like using a ghost pepper sauce, but make it a sriracha consistency, make it kind of thick when it comes out, you add a liquid smoke to it, maybe even grill the peppers before you put them into the sauce. And then you add blackberry and cranberry to it and get that dark smoke flavor. Like, immediately in my head, I was thinking of like a man like offering candy to kids in a van with a dark hood on, like with demon eyes. Like, there
Oh,
you
that's
go.
lovely. Yeah, yeah, sure. That's cool. Right, cool. Yeah, with tinted out windows or curtained windows.
And there's like a
That's
jazz person playing saxophone under like a dim light and like a street light or something, snapping his fingers while playing a sax.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's what inspires me for all these labels. Like my prized possession uh, is my collection of the old pulp magazines from the 30s and 40s. So to just step outside of hot sauce for 1 second and get back into just my brain, the way that it works. Um, my favorite thing in the whole world. besides my daughter and my wife, shout out to them, is the old uh, the old hard boiled crime fiction books, which which sort of came out of the era of the Pulp Fiction magazine that used to be on the newsstands that had those really really just like graphic and visual stunning covers with girls like in damsels in distress and like hard boiled criminals and crooks like in the midst of a shootout or a robbery or some kind of heist, or the beautiful femme fatale has the upper hand and the guy has this look of imminent death on his face, which is what my label looks like, because the femme fatale has the upper hand on my label. But all those stories are my favorite. My favorite books. The Maltese Falcon, the Dashiell Hammetts, and the Raymond Chandlers, and the James M. Cains. All that stuff. All that detective fiction is my favorite thing in the world. Which is why I never saw Shrek, or I haven't seen any movies, dude. Because I sit at home every night. This is where I nerd out for a second and just devour all the old detective stories, all the old crime fiction. I read some other stuff too, but that's my MO.
Dude,
And
it goes back to beginning what we were talking about when it says garbage and all this stuff, what people consider garbage. I go to thrift stores a lot. It's why it's becoming really popular. Things being thrown back from the past, becoming new again, because we're starting to like all these millennials are becoming like 80s kids or 70s kids. Like they're trying to go back to that old time period because we've been so influenced with technology that we don't want it anymore. We're kind of shoving it away a little bit. We want to kind of go connect back to the past a little bit.
it's so
And
true, dude. The world is going to start to disappear if people don't get their fucking faces out of their phones, man. There's so much going on around them, and it's just a trap. It's fucking crazy.
you don't want to get nostalgia off your phone. And I mean, it's going to end up being that way, but a lot of kids are starting to realize like there's a benefit to finding old school arts. That's why you're seeing like woodworking becoming a major thing. You're seeing all these passions and hobbies like glass blowing and stuff that was so back in the past becoming so new now. And when we talk like I had an experience like when I was a kid, I don't know how many times like I went to Baltimore with my dad. We go see my great grandparents. Um, I would always see this trophy, but I would never pay it or not trophy. It was like a trophy case, and I would never pay attention to what was inside of it. I would always look up at the very top to all the designs and all the like pictures of all the kids that he had, all the grandkids and everything. And it wasn't until after he passed when we were cleaning out all the stuff. Like he held a lot of junk. We talk about how your dad hoarded some things in some sheds. My great grandfather did the same thing. And so we're going through, and I come across all these trophies. I mean, big, giant, like gold trophies. I'm like, what are these? And my dad's like, oh, yeah, your great grandfather did NASCAR before it was NASCAR. I'm like, what?
No way.
Yeah, that's like, I was like, what? Like, why? How come he never talked about it? He goes, oh, he just didn't care. He
Out of
did
the
it.
out of the past, man. Out of the past.
Yeah, like he did it on a dirt track. He won a lot of championships, won a lot of money. It's where he met my great grandmom. I had no idea about any of this.
I know.
And
I'd like to think that I would share all my great tales and my family's history with my daughter, but maybe I won't. Maybe we just don't. We just lock it up and
that's what I'm
and throw the
lost
key.
about because like I'll ask my parents, I'll ask my grandparents, like, where do we come from? What is this? What is our history? What is this? What is that? What is this? And they're just like, I don't know. They just don't care. But
They
all the
just don't
kids
fucking
that
care.
all the great grandkids, they want to know. All the grandkids want to know. All the kids want to know. They want to know where they're coming from. That's why ancestry.com got so popular. Everybody wanted to know where their ancestors were, whatever, where they came from, what percentage of DNA they are. I'm like, that's why I got so fascinated with hanging around my grandparents because forever I would hear the same stories over and over and over again. And I'll sit down now and he'll be repeating the same story. Like, I remember when I was in the army. And then like he'll be like, oh, I think I've already told you this. And I'm like, go ahead and tell me it again. Like, because you are a history book. Like, that's what I'm like I said, I'm not a good reader. I mean, I am a good reader, but I just don't like reading. I would take these people as history books, man. They would be my information. It's like I'm reading a biography right now because they're telling they've lived an experience. You're seeing the world through a whole nother person's perspective. You know, we're so closed-minded a lot of the times, and we talk about old things being thrown back and garbage being in whatever is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But I came across a thrift store that had 50 to 100 magazines of old Mad TV, old superhero Batman, first edition Spider-Man comics that were in a crappy condition, but they were comics. The woman was selling the whole box for $2. Like, that for me was a find. Like,
That's a score.
I
Yeah,
found
absolutely,
some of my favorite things, which you can probably relate to. Garbage Pail Kids, dude. Those
dude.
cards.
I'm standing next to a framed those poster uncut Garbage Pail Kids Volume 2B
Dude, those things,
as we speak.
the art designs on them are insane and out of this world. Like, we went so far into technology. Fuck that. Let's go back to the past a little bit and pull out some of these old retro stuff. Like, we're seeing it come back.
Yeah, I'm glad that we are, man. I'm glad that we are. I love I mean, Garbage Pail Kids are my favorite, man. We used to, go down to the 7-Eleven. It was like 7-Eleven was it wasn't just a convenience store, man. It was like Magic Land, you know. You go in there and like get a Slurpee and mix the cherry and the Coke and then get a pack of Garbage Pail Kids and chew the gum because parents didn't care back then about stuff like that. It was fine. Everything was, nobody was like keeling over on the sidewalk out front.
Kids were
And like, I don't,
skateboarding, kids were
yeah, kids were
scootering.
skateboarding.
I don't see that shit anymore, dude.
I remember my teeth were always loose from, getting, smacking them into the handlebars and, I remember they were building this huge, this was great, man. They were building this huge condo complex where I'm from. And the builders were fucking livid because they were digging out these huge basements for like long rows of condos. They were the perfect BMX bike tracks because you could go in and then just have all this room to like build up speed and then launch out of what was going to be the foundation. And then there were mounds of dirt next to this huge. They were called the pits by the kids. They called them the pits. Meet you at the pits. And I don't remember any parental supervision. And nobody wearing helmet. Nobody was wearing a helmet. I sound old, but nobody was wearing helmets. And we just wrecked ourselves, just day in and day out, every single day, just battle scars, man.
It was literally like, be back home at this time for dinner. That was it. And I remember I used to live near a golf course, and me and my brother would go, and the jackass stunt where they blow the air horn. We'd
Yeah.
do that, but we'd say stuff. We'd scream at them while they go and swing. We had old people chasing us. We had security coming after us. We'd go onto the thing, and you would find golf balls everywhere. We both had drawers filled with golf balls. For us, that was like collectible cards or something, like, oh, I got this one. It floats. I got this one that it's blue. I got this one that's whatever. It's like,
Oh yeah, right. I thought a day glow yellow one.
yeah.
Cool, man. I'll trade you my blue one.
You
Yeah.
play Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh with them. Like, I'll trade you this one for that one. But it was so cool. Like, those were back in the days, and like, you have so much to worry about now. And like, people, all like kids now, like, dude, my little cousin Ubers. Like, what the hell? He's 15, 14. He's Ubering. I rode my bike to 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee. I'd had those experiences. You don't know what it's like to be 15 years old, riding home because you're trying to beat a storm. A storm, dude, because you're about to
Yeah.
get caught in the rain. So you're pedaling as fast as you can. Like, I need to get fucking home.
Right. Just looking back, just keeping track of where it is and how far those huge burrowing clouds are coming after you, dude. I remember, like, well, speaking of just nostalgia and not having the things we have now, but in order to even like get a hold of somebody back then, if you didn't have 10 cents or 20 cents to make a call on the payphone, we had tricks, dude. If you were out all day with your friends and you were just like, you walked too far to walk back and you're exhausted, but and you found a payphone and you called home to get a ride, but you didn't have 20 cents. What you would do is you would call the operator and make a collect call, and when they would say, do you accept a collect call from, and then you would say your name at the beep. But instead of saying your name,
You said the message.
you said either the message But if there wasn't enough time for that, you just said the number that was on the payphone, and then you hung up, and then they call you back.
That's
Every payphone had a number on it. It was like the local exchange if you were in your town.
I was just heading out. Like I was just kind of growing up when those things were kind of phasing out. Like I remember having the landlines or the home phones. Like every paper you fill out now says home phone. I'm like, update your thing. Nobody has a home phone anymore. It's all like
You know what'd be great, dude?
telephones.
You know what'd be great? I want to get a. I want to. That I never thought about this until now, but I want to get a payphone for my home and hook up a landline to it. It'd be
There's just
cool, right?
something awesome about it. I don't know what it is. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like when you hit those number dials, there's like a weird, like old vintage feel to it. I love that.
Yeah, man. Those little metal numbers that had the little braille, little points that stick up on there because I've always been looking out for the sight impaired on those things. I'm always thinking like, um, how did the blind guy even find this payphone all the way out here in the middle of nowhere? But
That's what I'm saying, dude. I had so many questions when it came to like Braille and all that. I'm like, what happens if he's blind and doesn't have a sense of touch? Like, what do you do then? You can't feel the Braille. Like, well, someone will say something to him. I'm like, so he has to have a person walking beside. What happens if he's deaf too? Like, what happens if God's just like, let's just let him have all the capabilities of moving around like a person, but no senses at all? Like, what happened then? He goes, well, then that person's just probably going to die, Robbie. And that was a teacher that told me that. Like, I had those type of questions when I was a kid. I was a little bit of a spark
wow,
plug, but like,
man, you've always been this way, haven't you? Yeah.
well, I always like asking questions because I'm like I want to know answers to stuff, and I like to know as much information as possible because you only better your own life with it. I mean, so many people nowadays like they just stick with an opinion and run with it. I'm like, no, let's get everybody's perspective on it. And we have this amazing device in our pockets, but using it in such the worst way when it comes to just being able to prove facts and being able to show. Back in the day, someone told you like your friend would tell you, yo, did you hear about Bruce? What happened? He got drunk at a party and hit some girl. And then you would sit there and you would be like, did you hear about what Bruce did? Did you hear and that's how rumors spread. And next thing you know, you find out it's not true, but you've already like believed it for so long. It's like now people just look up a fact or look up something on the phone like, hey, Will Smith's not in that movie. You're actually wrong. And you're like, oh, and now I'm wrong. Like back in the day, you just believed it.
I know, and the same is true for all that junk that was in our sheds in the backyard, all that stuff that we hoarded, that people would come to conventions and look for. Dude, they used to come to conventions, just to bring that back for a second, but they'd come to the conventions, and like you said earlier, it wasn't cool. They were like these weird collecting nerds, and they would come to conventions with old school nerdy briefcases, and they would unlatch it at our booth and pull out like these long yellow legal pads, or if they were really technologically advanced, like old school printer paper with the little holes on the side of it, with all their lists of the issues they had, and their want list on the right side. But usually it was like these old legal pads, and they would be out, scouting and scavenging for all their treasures that they needed to fill their collections with. And if they didn't find it, better luck next time. But
Yeah.
now you just go on eBay and go, Garbage Pail Kid, card number 23B, Messy Tessie. I need version 2 with the snot running upper nose rather than downer nose. It
I
was like a
spent
mistake.
so much fucking money trying to get that card out of that pack or something. I got the same cards over and over again. You're like tossing them. You're like, come on, man, come on. Somebody trade me for these. Like you're trading around town and stuff. Dude, that stuff is gone, man. That's what got me about your sauce is I saw it. First thing I thought of now that if you really want to roll back to the beginning of the podcast,
Yeah, tell me, dude, how did you find me anyways?
Instagram.
Right on.
I think you followed somebody in the hot sauce community. I was like, well, this is interesting because I'm always interested in people's like creative events. I kind of want to hear about it and I want to talk to that person as well. It's really like I'll choose to buy a product, but I want to know that person. Like, you know what I mean? It builds up a better relationship and makes it more of a relatable experience, which goes into like back in the beginning when I said, when I walked into that meeting room, my dad would put on Mortal Kombat for me when I went to work with them. Your sauce has a dragon like the front of Mortal Kombat. I just realized. Like I immediately just unknowingly clicked on it, and I was like, "This is interesting." And then like we can look at the vintage style of it. What catches the eye not only is the graphic design about the comics, but it's relatable because people get that nostalgia and vintage experience when they see it. That's very good marketing techniques. That's kind of like self, like I guess psychological advertising you're basically doing. You're attacking people at like the nostalgia era where you don't even think about it.
Right on, man. I appreciate that, and that's the core of. You're so right. That's the core of marketing. You've got to grab people psychologically in like a fraction of a second, man. I mean, they're so like inundated. Like every like 2 seconds, like 150 things are coming at them. So if you're like little, if your label doesn't do it in that fraction of a second, then forget it, man. They're just gonna walk on by and check their Instagram or check their Facebook or see something that does pop out, man. It's hard. It's hard grabbing people. That's the hardest thing.
I mean, you got my attention, man, and just by talking to you too, like I've already kind of restored a faith in just, like you built up a good standing in my eyes. Like when I look at Silk City Hot Sauce, I know you now. I think that's what is really important, especially with the fact is you have to be on top of social media, especially as a business or entrepreneur now. But like having a good conversation with you, it's like when you meet your favorite band and you find out they're a really good person, like Metallica being able to help out their fans, give their fans like loyal fans, like especially the one woman that was dying and her death wish was to see Metallica and they visited her in the hospital. That type of stuff, when you find out they're actually good people, that's what stores your faith in them forever. Like you stored my faith into Silk City Hot Sauce, but like so many people you meet and you're kind of bummed out at how they act. Like I know so many famous people that turned out to be assholes that don't have time for people because they're too much a big fish. And it's like if you can't treat everybody on the same level, then you're not respecting yourself and you don't respect just life in general. And I think that's what's very needed, especially when you're a business owner, is never get too big for your britches because sometimes that can cause failure. You muted yourself, Jeff. You're good. What were you saying?
I don't even know if you heard that, but no, I appreciate you reaching out and giving me an opportunity to come on here and talk to you, man. I have so much respect for what you're doing here. It's I don't know if people out there are listening and realize, but you're very good at this. You're very good at driving this conversation, moving it forward, peaking, or just like mining info or just memories out of your guest. Today, it's me.
Well,
Um,
it's not even just me. It's not me. That's nervous. That's like you are inflating my ego like one of those monsters on a hot sauce bottle. But we all have the ability to have a conversation, just wanting to have it. Like I care. I'm listening. I'm not blanking off. My phone is completely across the room from me. I'm not touching it. I make that a rule when I do the podcast because I care. I'm having a conversation with you. Yeah, you have like obviously I usually get a little bit of time with people. It's hard to commit. I understand, but I appreciate you for even coming out and doing it. We all have the ability to be able to do this. We just need to take the time to do so and get that amazing experience, man.
what I want to do moving forward after today is really, I think I really dug this conversation. I'd like to hang out with you more, hear some more of your stories. I'm going to look for a comic book convention or a trade show or something in your area to attend, to set up a booth. And look you up, and hopefully you can come down and hang out.
Hell yeah, dude! I'll show you. You can actually meet my dad, and he'll tell you some stories for sure.
Oh hell yeah, dude! I want to meet the whole family, man. Your people sound really cool.
I appreciate it, Jeff. And I really want to give you here a minute at the end to first of all promote your sauce, dude. I'm pro people. I want people to be able to find your stuff, follow you on Instagram, check out your website, make sure they can order your own sauce. And I mean, if you guys don't just buy the sauce because of the front cover, I just taste it. It's gonna blow your fucking mind off.
Right on, guys. Thanks for listening. If you are still listening to me right now, I'm on Facebook at Silk City Hot Sauce. You can go facebook.com/Silk City Hot Sauce. I'm on Twitter. Silk City Hot is my handle. I'd like to build that up. I have a hard time with that, but my Instagram is Silk City Hot Sauce. I'm there. I'm always posting where I'm going to be. I'll take pictures of food that we prepare with the sauce. Maybe you'll pick up a couple of ideas as far as what you do with hot sauce. And if you ever get an opportunity to meet anybody out there at an event. Um, Always look forward to that because it's definitely all about the people. I mean, that's what this is all about. I put myself out there to meet the people, and that's a scary place to be. And I know the sauce is good because I stand right there and sample it out. So
It's not
I think you'll
corporate, it's
enjoy it.
community. That's the best part. It's not corporate, it's community.
It's absolutely community based. I mean, I've got a relationship with the farmers that grow these peppers. I rent kitchen space from a friend of mine. We work till the wee hours. I mean, just 2 nights ago when we put this killer hot sauce together and bottled it up. I mean, we were up there until like midnight. And he's a good almost 3 hours from my home, so I got home in the middle of the night, and it's all worth it because
It's because you love it, and
it's
that's
fun.
what you got to do. I got to come down and try and make some sauce with you. That's got something I got to do off my bucket list for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch. And during the fall when it's pepper season, and last year I did do a batch of sauce called Dragon. I did do a batch of sauce called Smokin', where we sat over this long, like 8 foot coal grill and fire roasted and grilled peppers all day. Me and my friend George, and just kept putting the grilled peppers into these food grade buckets, and then I created a sauce with those, and they're amazing. I mean, they're fire roasted, they're grilled, they're hot, and
Oh man, there's something
it'd be
about grilling
great.
on top of a campfire, dude. That smoky flavor that you
Oh,
get
it's
into it.
primal, dude. It's primal, man.
That's
It's
that's
you
my
can.
whole childhood, man. Going camping and stuff. My dad was like, this is my dad. He listened to music at doing DJ gigs at night, doing radio during the day. He slept 3 hours a day. Like that was it. In the 3 hours, he would try and spend time with me, but he'd just take a nap, let me play music like drums in the garage or something. But he took me on camping trips when he had like a day off or something. And we would just, I mean, cook meals, like eating crabs at 2 o'clock in the morning next to a bonfire, like with like, like those Christmas lights hanging from like the awning and everything. Dude, those were some of the best times. Like when you wake up, you smell like bonfire. Like it kind of sucks in the morning, but it's like you like that smell, dude. Like the food, even like I love like a nice baked potato with like a nice smoked cook. Oh my god, man! You wrap tinfoil around it, it soaks in all the flavor.
Oh, it's the best, dude. All that stuff's the best. You can close your eyes, and you could just connect with people from a million years ago. Just realizing for the first time that the saber-toothed tiger tastes so much better when it fell in the fire. And you just put yourself right there, and then maybe like the berry, like some berries just sort of rolled into the fire by accident and turned into jam. I don't, I think a lot of things happen by mistake, or people just kind of came up with it, but it's all
Shoot.
connected, man.
I'm walking down memory lane. I'm thinking of all the people, all the kids nowadays are going to miss out because Fortnite. They're all going to miss out of going and getting sticks during the middle of the night because you need firewood. Go get some kindling. All right. Go get it.
Yeah, well, my kid's not going to miss out on any of that because I don't even know what Fortnite is, but she's going to grow up and we're going to collect firewood. We're going to make fire. We'll do stuff inside too. I mean, she's I can't like shelter her from all the things of the modern world, but we're definitely going to turn her on to stargazing. I mean, I don't know if people do that anymore, but if you just go outside and just stare up at the stars, man,
It's
you
you
could
can't
survive.
really anymore, man. Sadly, it's changed so much now. I try and go out like and look up at the stars. They're not really there anymore because of how much.
You got to come up here, dude. You got to come up here. I mean, we're far enough north
Yeah.
that it's there's still open skies, man, and we could make a fire, and especially during the pepper season, and you're more than welcome, dude, to come up here and chill and experience what a big batch of smoky fire sauce, dude.
I want to just camp out one night, but like even down here, like we've seen the pollution get so bad, like it's you can't even really see stars anymore. It's like, is that a star? No, that's a satellite. It's like, damn, it's like I remember looking up as a kid and seeing the whole damn sky lit up like the scene from Men in Black, where you're like, whoa, we're not the only things left out here. And it's like
I
it's completely changed.
It's so true, man. It's like it's that's why I think like the whole this whole culture of narcissism and me. Everybody is so obsessed with them. There's such a self-centered culture right now. Like I got my page. I mean, and here I was just advertising my social media, but you got to do what you got to do. But back in the day, it was like big group mentality. It was like nobody had their own page. Uh, it was like if you went to a concert and it was and there were like 8,000 people seeing a Kiss tribute band. Everybody was there together rocking out. Now you go to a show and everyone's filming it to show like 200 pathetic people like that they were there, like I did this, but it has nothing to do with this whole group mentality that we're all here experiencing this good show and then move on with our lives. It's like
I know it kind of
it's weird,
sucks
man.
because the way we've kind of went with the world and how like everyone's allergic to so many things now, it's hard to make probably a sauce in general. But I really kind of connected like with the time like roasting like marshmallows on an open fire. Imagine if you can create like that s'mores flavor into a freaking hot sauce, or maybe even like a chestnut and cranberry mix that's like a holiday taste to it. Like that would be fucking amazing if you could put like a nice smoky flavor into a sauce, like a smoked marshmallow, just on it like that. I don't know. I like those type of flavor profiles because those type of things bring me back to like when I'm a kid poking a fire with a stick.
Yeah, dude. Like when we get like put like wrote on the label, put like a pilgrim and roasting over a fire with like something like that. I don't know, but I think it's a great idea. Like a cranberry, throw some fucking turkey in there for God's sakes. I mean, no one's doing any meat hot sauces, and meat is very popular nowadays. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those
Yeah,
things that
goes back and forth with the vegan and all this stuff. It creates complications when you're trying to be a food entrepreneur. It's like, all right, what is it? We're not organic anymore. What is it? Oh, we're not fish anymore either. What are we now? Well, we're not vegetarian anymore. What we're all meat. It goes back
you're
and
right, man.
forth,
It's all
man.
very confusing. You're right. It's all good. It's like back in the day, it was cholesterol was a problem. Now it's like people are shooting it up, and it's
Now it
weird,
seems
man.
like everybody's allergic to the sun, but you know, times are strange, as Joe Rogan says. So I guess we just gotta see where it and kind of stick out and watch it all kind of fall back. It seems like everything throughout history gets redone. So I won't be surprised where people will be wearing bell-bottom dresses again.
Well, I don't know where we're going, but look out for the package you got coming your way. I don't even know where we're at right now. Are we still good?
Yeah, we've been talking for an hour and a half, man. We can end it if you want. I'll put your links in the description and everything, man.
Okay, cool. I don't want to end it quick, or let's leave them wanting more. That's a always a good thing, dude. I mean, maybe they're at a
You
point
gotta
where they're
be
like, you know what,
you
these
gotta be like
Jeffrey is
Sam's Club or whatever, where they give you that free sample and you just keep coming back for more because that's how they get you.
yeah, it's like the great band Rat said we'll be back for more, something like
Bro,
that.
blood orange and a cranberry in a sauce.
Out of the blanks signature sauce, dude. I think that's a great flavor.
And put a
I don't know.
vampire on the front. I don't know. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast and stay tuned for our next episode.